It feels way too soon to already be saying this, but I literally have like 4 days of training left here in Edinburgh before I am gone again to the next competition. So next up is the Montreal World Cup, and yeah, it's been a crazy turnaround. Last week I spoke about a bit of a come down from Worlds, but I've not had time to dwell on that. It's just been a case of like going through it, experiencing it, dealing with it, and getting on with it. So last week my training was relatively easy. This week it stepped up a little bit so far. Starting to prep again for competition. So doing my synchro dives, doing my individual dives. Even though Johan's actually not been here, he's back home in Calgary at the moment. So I had to do my synchro dives on my own, which is always a bit weird. Here's a little clip of my synchro session. Yeah, I don't like synchro on my own because I feel like my timing is not quite where it would be had he been next to me, because I definitely, when I'm like doing my dives, I'm like looking out the corner of my eyes and seeing what he's doing and matching his pace, for example, walking down the board, matching his movements on the end of the board. But yeah, when I do it individually, I don't quite have that because obviously he's not there. And then individual has also been okay. Here's a little clip of my individual session. Like at this point, I don't want necessarily, I mean, I do always want my dives to be good. I don't need my dives to be good. They don't need to be perfect. They don't need to be spot on. Again, as I said, I just need to do them, because once I get to Montreal, once I start training in the competition environment again with all the international divers and start feeling that competition adrenaline, then I'll probably hopefully start to feel good again. Hopefully, I cross my fingers when I say that. I'll hopefully start to feel good again, and I'll be able to move a little bit more fluidly and a little bit more powerfully, because this week, my dives have been okay, like generally all right, but it's felt like hard work. It's felt like hard work, and that's because I've had like the shock of getting back to SSE, the shock of getting back to conditioning. So my legs have been feeling a bit tired. My body's been feeling a bit slow and a little bit sluggish. But even so, like most of my dives and training have been generally acceptable, which is a good place to be in. So next week, as I say, hopefully I can kind of build on that. But now I can do these events with the prospect and the excitement and the anticipation of using them to prepare for the Olympics in Paris, because there I want to, I want to peak and I want to do my best. I want to perform at my highest level. So all of the World Cup events, so when I go to Montreal, when I go to Berlin, hopefully if I go to Xi'an, to the super final, all of that is going to be preparation for my performance at the Olympics. So I actually want to use these events to kind of experiment a little bit with my dives, experiment with my list order, because I can't say it's not been working, because it's definitely worked well for what I need. But if I want to try and unlock some more performance, if I want to unlock a slightly higher level of performance, if I want to try and get some higher scores, and try and make the Olympic final as I'm hoping for, then something needs to change and something needs to improve slightly. And I've had great performances in the past with my current list order. For example, at the Commonwealth Games, went really, really well, scored really well. Didn't quite achieve the medal that I wanted to achieve at that time, but the performance was great. And if I can achieve somewhere around that level of performance in Paris 3 times, in the prelim, semi-final and final, then I'll probably be pretty content. Since the Commonwealth Games, it's not been as solid in terms of my performances. There's definitely been a few drops here and there, like generally okay, again, for what I need. But if I want to achieve that higher level, I need to figure out a way where I can, confidently approach all of my dives in competition, and trust that I can execute them well. So the current issue is that with the way that my list is structured, so for those that know diving, this is some diving talk. I open on front 3.5 pike, which is one of my most comfortable dives. That's why I open on it, because I'm very confident on it. I know that I can, regardless of my hurdle, I know that I can do it well, and sometimes very, very well. Looking at 8s, maybe 8.5s on a good day. And that's always a really good, strong start to the competition. My next dive is my back 2.5 pike, which, again, when I'm still feeling the competition, like the early competition adrenaline before I've maybe fully settled, it's another really good dive because I've been doing it for so long. It's been one of my, most solid dives for such a long time. So I can approach it with confidence and know that I'm not going to make a mistake on it. So that feels good, being in second. My third dive is full out, because it's nice to have just like a really settling dive before the back end of my list. And full out is one where I don't need to get a good hurdle, I don't need to get a good start to do it well, but again, I want to be pushing the 8s and 8.5s on that dive, because it's a low DD, so I need to execute it really, really well to try and get more points. So those opening 3 dives, I think, are in a really good structure, and I don't want to change those. I don't feel like they need to be changed. It's my last 3 dives where I feel like I could maybe play around with it a little bit and make some adjustments. So at the moment, my last 3 has been in with 3.5, then reverse 3.5, and then double out. So some of the problems that I've had with that, for example, is that inward and reverse can be a bit of a lottery sometimes. Like, I don't always know 100% if I'm going to do them well, because they're hard dives and it's not always possible to do them well. And again, at Commonwealth Games, I did them both very well, both in the prelim and in the final. So I know I can do them well back to back like that. But what often happens is I'll make a mistake on inward and then I'll be a bit frustrated. So I want to improve. I want to do my reverse really well so that I can make up for it. So then I'd potentially do a good reverse. Or I then try too hard in reverse and make a mistake on it. So then I have the double drop. Or on the flip side, I do a really good inward, and then because I feel like I'm in a good position, especially in the prelim or in the semi-final, I'll then just want to do a solid reverse and not, approach reverse with like high energy and high confidence. I want to do like a safe reverse. So I go for a safe hurdle, which then doesn't work on reverse, so then I then drop that dive. Then if that happens, if I hit one of those and drop the other, whichever way round, then often on the double out on my last dive, again, if I know I'm in a good position, I want to do it like just solid and safe. So I'll go safe on the hurdle, not get a good hurdle. Again, I need a decent hurdle to make it. It doesn't need to be perfect, but I need a decent one to do it well. And then I might make a mistake on that dive as well. Also with the way that my legs come apart a little bit, the more that I have to rush that dive, the more that I'm not flowing on it, the more that my legs come apart and the more that the judges might deduct. So it's worked in many ways, as I say, for what I need, but maybe a little bit of an adjustment here and there might help, because it might help me just flow that little bit better through those last 3 dives. So one idea that I have is literally switching inward and double out round. So if I do double out fourth, in the past when I had front 4.5 tuck and I would put that into the final, I would move double out from last to third, because that would just replace full out. And when I do that, I would approach my double out so much better, and I'd often score much higher on my double out in third than I would at the end of my list. And also I find that it would set me up better for my last few dives. So actually maybe having it fourth would help that. Maybe my flow would be better because I'll be just in the middle of the competition. Maybe the judges might not see my legs as much, they might not notice it as much, so I might get away with that a little bit more, especially if I do a good dive, whereas I think they're more likely to notice it at the end of my list. And I think that would be a good place for it as well, straight after full out. And then moving on to reverse afterwards, the ideal situation then is having reverse before inward. So rather than doing my reverse in the after effect of doing my inward, regardless of whether I hit it or miss it, I think that would mean I can just approach it with confidence straight away, rather than approaching it with anger because I've dropped inward, or approaching it cautiously because I've done a good inward. Maybe I can just approach it with, you got to go for this, so go for it. And when I go for reverse, more often than not, it works out relatively well. So maybe that's a better place to have it. And then the questionable idea is finishing on inward, finishing on a standing dive, which I've not done much. And I don't actually think I've ever done it before. I think I've always finished on hurdle, but I think by finishing on inward, I'll naturally have that competition adrenaline a little bit more. I'll be more likely to do a good start and a strong start and make the dive easy, so I have to come out early. Whereas when it's been fourth, I've not always anticipated having a good start, and that's when I've gone over, like I did in Doha in the semi-final. Got a really good takeoff, wasn't ready for it, came out too late, landed on my back. But maybe if it's at the end of my list, I can just approach it and think, you know what, probably going to get a good start here, so you need to be ready for that, you need to come out early. And then I've already considered the adjustment that I need to make, and it might result in a better dive. So that's one of the ideas that I've had. That's the one that's kind of stuck the most in my head when I've thought about it, because I've thought about all the different options and all the different, little movements that I can make in my order, but none of them has kind of stood out as much as that one. So I'm still considering it, but I think I'm going to give that order a go in Montreal and just see how it feels. It's not necessarily about the outcome of that competition. Like, for example, if it all goes wrong, if I try it and it all goes wrong in Montreal and I don't dive well, which I don't think it will do. I think it'll go terribly wrong. But I could make a mistake here and there. The outcome isn't the most important thing. I think the most important thing is the feeling of how I perform with that change. So if I feel confident and comfortable when I do my reverse 3.5, and if I trust I'm going to get a good start on my inward before I do it, regardless of whether I do or not, that's the most important thing. And then based on that, I can then decide going forward. But I'd rather try and make this adjustment in seeking better performance. But I'd rather try that than not try it and just continue doing what I'm doing. And if it doesn't go well in the summer, then I'll be like, oh, I wish I made that change. Like I don't want to regret anything. So I'd rather try and see what happens, and then I can make adjustments from there. But yeah, that's my thoughts around Montreal. But I'm super excited to get back into competition so soon. It doesn't really happen that often that we have such a short gap between competitions. And I think it's always really good to be able to get straight back into competition again, because you can try and work on some of the things that maybe didn't go so well last time, and you can try and improve on the things that did go well. So exactly like this list order that I'm talking about. So I'm excited to try that and see what happens. So yeah, I'll see you out in Canada.